How's it going, everybody? It's Wardy here, and as you see, we're back at it talking about the Amazons. And we have an early Big Mets update segment to get into, and what I'm hoping is one of multiple forms of content that we have today, because of the news that we're about to break down does in fact become a reality, as Pete Alonso returning the Mets as soon as today. We're going to deep dive where initially this stems from, how credible it is, if at all, and ultimately, when are we going to reach an Alonso conclusion? Will it be today? Will it be hours or minutes after this video posts? Will it be days, if not weeks from now? That is a great old question, but we'll get into the latest on the Alonso front. And from there, David Stearns just had a tremendous interview that we saw there with CBS, so we're going to further deep dive the key components from that, what David Stearns had to say on not only being Mets Pobo, but separating fandom from the everyday job, and ultimately the ins and outs of the Juan Soto negotiation. Among other things, folks, is what we're going to deep dive. Let me see your initial reactions in the comments down below. Do you think Pete Alonso is returning the Mets as soon as today? Let's deep dive where exactly this comes from, but shout out to our amazing sponsor at BetUS First, which has you covered with all your sports betting needs. As many of you guys know by now, make sure you head over to betus.com.pa today and use Wardy's promo code YouTube50. That way YouTube will get you 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your second and your third for whatever you want to bet on, folks. And as you guys can see, I am hammering a quick two-leg NBA parlay tonight for both what we have in the Milwaukee Bucks and the Dallas Mavericks to win outright in their respective games. Feel free to tail this respective bet, as again, it's going to be a two-leg parlay there. I put right around 15 down, if I'm not mistaken, 20 down to win me 44 though. So hopefully a turnout of just under $60 should all these in fact hit, everybody. Please know I'm not a sports betting expert, just a diehard fan that loves to place daily bets on NBA action. Like we hammered the Knicks a couple days ago, and they won handsomely for their 5th straight victory, which we love to see there against the Denver Nuggets just 2 nights ago. Tonight we're going to be hammering these picks, and tomorrow we may be doing NHL Super Bowl weekend. Before we know it, we'll hammer that pick as well, along with MLB bets plenty throughout the regular course of the season. Again, guys, have fun with me, but please make sure you bet responsibly, most importantly with our friends here at BetUS. But now, folks, as we hop back into this one, let's get to where this news initially stems from. As many of you guys saw along with me yesterday, WFAN host, but let's not forget a former NFL legend during his time with the Cincinnati Bengals, a little stint there with the Jets as well, Boomer Esiason, who is your daily host there with Boomer and Gio on the Fan, tweeted out yesterday, last night, I'm feeling like Pete is a Met tomorrow. First and foremost, for those that don't follow Boomer Esiason, let me just enlighten you. I understand that everyone has their respective opinions of talking heads of the radio space among others, but Boomer is not the type of guy to usually go out of his way to air this type of information out unless he has found out intel that he feels very confident in. Now, doesn't mean it's a guarantee to happen, no, but there is some credibility that comes with this, and we'll get into why I have at least a sliver of faith in this becoming a reality. If not today, then certainly in the coming days. And we're going to hear from the horse's mouth himself, as this is what Boomer Esiason had to say on Boomer and Gio earlier this morning.
Esiason put out 9 hours ago, 8:48 p.m. I'm feeling like Pete is a Met tomorrow. Tomorrow is now today. Good morning, Boomer Esiason. What do you know?
I'm thinking today's the day, man. And I'm thinking, it's probably going to happen at 10:05. So I just wanted to get out in front of it. So just so we all know that as a diehard Met fan myself, I want the guy at first base. I want him in the lineup. Steve Cohen's done a lot of great things for us since he's taken over ownership of this team, and this will be another one. This will be another nice little present for us as I believe that hopefully they'll come to an agreement today.
Yeah, but there has to be more to it than that.
Well,
you got the ear to the ground.
I always have my ear to the
ground.
All
right, so let me ask you the confidence level.
What is this, like some sort of interrogation?
Oh, I need to know. I mean, you put that out there, you put it out there, you're going to get questions about it.
And you wouldn't put it out there unless you knew.
Hey, listen, guys. Everybody just pump the brakes for 5 seconds. Yeah, I put it out there. I will stand by it. And if it doesn't happen, you can call me a jackass. Whatever you want.
No.
No,
I'm not going to do that.
It's going to happen, and you'll be Boomstradamus.
All right.
Okay, so that's all Boomer has to say about that. And in simple terms, for those that are unaware on the track record of Boomer Esiason and when he kind of floats things out there, if it's going to in fact be fact or not, he has been both right and wrong. Most famously, that some fans allude to him being wrong about has either been previous hires that have been thrown out there in recent years there on the coaching staffs of respective teams. I'm not going to get into the specific details because I'm not going to act like I know every specific team there, but I know that's been floated, as well as him claiming that the Commanders were going to actually be named the Admirals. That obviously didn't happen. They were the Washington football team and then the Commanders. But there's something to be said about Boomer Esiason airing this out with his favorite team, New York Mets. The last time that Boomer came out with something regarding his favorite teams, especially that was notable, reminds me a lot of just around a decade ago, 2014, as a diehard Ranger fan like myself in the minds of many, including Boomer Esiason, was the first to break the news that Marty St. Louis, a legend winger coming over from the Tampa Bay Lightning over to the New York Rangers there at the time, was the first to announce that blockbuster trade. And that was pivotal for the Rangers in their run that fell short there to the LA Kings, and I don't need to talk about that any further. But all right, guys, reeling back in here for a second on the reality, or maybe that wasn't Kings. Maybe that's one they lost there in a different round. Either way, I know that they had a deep run that year, and I also know that Boomer Esiason has been on the money before, specifically when it comes to teams that he's a fan of. So if Boomer's going out of his way to just air this out right now comfortably, that, listen, I think Alonso's returning tomorrow, now meaning today, and to double down on it on the fan, he does not do this. He does not put his credibility on the line for people that believe that he has plenty of it for fluff, for something that is not going to be true. So even if this is in fact not true today, I do have a level of confidence that we will reach a Pete Alonso resolution as soon as the next 24, 48, 72 hours. That's something that I would love to see. Makes a lot of sense, so that way both the Mets and Alonso avoid signing already into spring training, as we're just a couple weeks away from pitchers and catchers and reporting. So Boomer, there's a lot on the line here, and anyone that's going out of their way that maybe is going to comment on this video a day from now saying, he didn't sign with the Mets yet, again, don't put this on me. I'm just simply relaying the message here from a massive talking head in the space, because Boomer has been on this before. We've seen in the past. We'll see what is happening here, because a lot's on the line. This is significant, right? Because if the Mets bring back Pete Alonso, we know just how much better it makes their lineup currently, right? Even without Alonso, I like how the Mets stand heading to 2025, but with Pete, and as you see the numbers down below, even in a down year for Alonso, 34 home runs, 88 RBIs, just imagine what he can do in this lineup with Juan Soto, with Francisco Lindor, with Mark Vientos, with everyone else in company. And listen, Alonso at his worst is still a guy that's absolutely the best for some teams out there in Major League Baseball. And for the Mets, we don't need Alonso to be the go-to guy. All we need Alonso to be is to be that dependable slugger there in the 4-5 hole that we expect him to be, especially batting there in front of guys like Lindor, Soto, among others in the 2025 season. And this is exactly what I've relayed to countless fans at Mets Mason Day Fan Fest over this past weekend. I interacted with at least 50 plus fans, which I was beyond humble and grateful for, guys. The fact that I had some of you guys coming up to me and saying how I'm a part of your morning routine. I spoke to some mothers in which their kids, literally, they watch me before they go to school each day. So to all you kiddos out there, thank you so much, and I apologize all at the same time. But all jokes aside, those interactions were tremendous, and one commonality that I had with all those positive interactions with Mets fans are followers of mine is that they all pretty much brought up the Pete Alonso situation. As long as we had more than just a quick second to say hi, bye, or get a photo or something, it was always the question at hand with Pete Alonso. My answer has been the same and has not wavered since then. I firmly believe Alonso is returning this Mets team. He's going to circle back to Queens, which is why Steve Cohen, even after his amazing day, brutally honest comments, has found himself back in the market for Alonso and for his services. Likely a 3-year deal with an opt-out after the first and or second seasons. Makes sense for both sides here. Alonso will be getting an AAV that's right in the same realm, if not more, than a guy like Matt Olson, so he's nothing to complain about. And listen, yes, he might have to bet on himself again to look for a long-term deal a year from now, but at least he's given that opportunity with a team that will probably get the best out of him, versus him going elsewhere and then being in potentially a one-and-done year with a lot of pressure on his shoulders as a Scott Boras client again, but this time with a team like the Blue Jays, a team like the San Francisco Giants, a team like the LA Angels. Again, not that these things can't happen, because there's been a lot of rumblings going on, but I will have to believe it when I officially see it. Up until then, I think it's fluff, in similarity to kind of how all the rumblings and rumors have been with Alonso at this point. If you guys just want to take what Boomer said with a grain of salt, that's completely understandable. I don't fault you at all, because even some of the most credible people in the space in recent years in baseball, not just for the Mets, but in baseball in general, haven't always been on the money. So we'll find out as the course of the day goes on, everybody. Should breaking news happen that Pete Alonso signs with the Mets, we have everything set up and ready to go. So we'll be breaking news and talking about that right away on the platform should it happen. So pretty much have it on your fingertips, have that subscribe button hit and that notification bell on, and that red subscribe button is showing that means you haven't subbed yet. Make sure you do so that way you're chiming into all the latest Mets content here, as I will also have a segment out shortly right after I'm recording this one, right around 40 minutes from now, so right around 12:30, I'll be recording with my guy Brennan in London for a latest New York Post sports segment that you guys can check out on the official New York Post Sports YouTube channel. Should be out later today on discussing further on Dylan Cease, the Mets connection there, and how a trade could potentially happen, along with my current segment in the Bleacher Report at 4 p.m. Eastern there. Be on the lookout, folks. I will talk more on the latest with Alonso and all the other MLB hot-button topics across the game today. I'm a host Wednesday, Thursday, Friday there, 4 p.m. Eastern in the Bleacher Report app for more than just Mets coverage. We're talking MLB-wide topics all off-season and in-season long now. But folks, before we wrap up the show, let's get into some key remarks I'd like to share, having to do so with our Pobo and Mr. David Stearns, because as you guys can see right here, let's pull this up, and I apologize, I know it's pretty zoomed in and not the most flattering look there for David. Love you, David, nothing personal, baby. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run this video without the audio playing, so that way CNBC, and I said CBS earlier, I apologize for that, CNBC television came out with a fantastic, roughly half-hour interview there with David Stearns that you can check out at the official CNBC television YouTube channel. Currently has roughly 13,000 views. I saw this when it first came out yesterday, but I want to reiterate it in a separate segment, so that's what we're going to highlight now. And what stands out to me in this segment are a couple key remarks on David Stearns, but one of which doesn't have to do with a remark that David made, but more so what John Heyman made in the New York Post in a segment, his latest article that came out last night. And I'd like to reiterate that further here because in the early goings of the Juan Soto negotiation, the Mets first approached Soto in round one of right around a $500 million deal, just over $41 million or so per year across 12 years. So just under 500, but with incentives and bonuses brought to 500 plus, right? At the time, the Mets were informed that they had the lowest offer on the table. They were in last place essentially, or in thereabouts among 5 big market teams bidding. From there, they could have quickly pivoted and say, hey, we're not going to do this. But obviously, thanks to Cohen & Co., it paid off big time. So simply saying, the Mets' initial bid for Soto was a good bid, a respectable bid by Stearns, but likely was one of those that it just simply is going to work. And they knew that multiple rounds of negotiation were going to happen. From there, that's where Steve obviously gets his hands more involved. And mind you, Steve right away had his hands involved in the Soto negotiation. He had Juan Soto at his Beverly Hills mansion in day one there of their meeting. So that is something that from the start, both Steve and David had a lot of hand-in-hand connection with this, but Steve really spearheaded from the start because while he did help with the initial process of the negotiation, it was obviously heavily Steve throughout the entire thick of it, from the first bid up until the very bid, the final bid, to get it done. And what Steve said it himself at Amazing Day, up until like a couple minutes before we found out that we officially landed Soto, I did not think that we were landing on Soto. That's how much the Mets were still in the dark there, which is crazy to say. But expand further here on David Stearns, everybody, and his key remarks in this interview, which was a fantastic job there from CNBC. Highly implore you guys to check it out whenever you guys get the chance to. He did make note on a couple things I'd like to share with each and every one of you, and it first starts there with the Juan Soto negotiation, and he further emphasized how the family aspect of things played such a key role there in his decision to land with the Mets. And I quote, "Determine you have the best understanding possible as to who this player is on the field and who he's off the field to understand what might appear to that player," Stearns said. And I quote, "A big part of this process with a premium free agent is the non-monetary aspects of the deal." He went on to obviously headline the fact that getting a chance to go after a generational hitter is not something that's a commonality for the Mets or for any team for that matter, so you really need to pounce and take advantage of this. They had the full expectation that Soto will hit the free agent market after he said no to the Washington Nationals extension 3.5, 4 years ago, which we all knew was going to inevitably be the case at the time, but for whatever reason, Padre fans want to say no, Yankee fans want to say no at times, which I just thought was hilarious. Soto was prioritizing the dollar amount through and through right up until the very end here. And then look, I love another emphasis here on separating the fandom from the day-by-day job as the Mets' active present baseball operations. Perfect quote here. And I quote, "Look, I'm still a Knicks fan. I'm still a Giants fan. So I still have the fan part of me, and fans get to be more emotional, and that's what makes being a fan a lot of fun." Stearns goes on to say the following, "I don't have that luxury, and if I did let that creep into this, ultimately, I don't think our fans would be happy about that because I would probably make decisions that aren't in the best interest of the organization." So David Stearns is being blunt by saying, if I want to be a true fan and be reactionary the way I want to be, yeah, I'm probably going to gut the entire farm. I'm going to sign all these inflated inflated contract, so we're just going to try to win as many championships as we can. I know the counter is, well, the team like the Dodgers and to a lesser degree the Phillies kind of do operate like that, so why not just go and do it? And the reality is that you need to make sure you have a structure to be a sustained winner in Major League Baseball. And as much as Stearns has done a great job, he understands that the Mets just can't be acting willy-nilly like they have all this endless money to spend when you still need to make sure that you have not only a hard line in the sand, but also that balance of having flexibility to be opportunistic in areas where the Mets otherwise couldn't have been ever under the Wilpons, versus now with Steve Cohen. You can never officially say no on pretty much anything until it's officially no, right? And that's the exciting thing, including Steve, who said it at Amazing Day himself, that listen, just because of where things stand now doesn't mean that things can't change. You know, never say never. I'm not saying no, that it won't happen. I'm just telling you that as things currently stand, we are pivoting and continuing to pivot in a direction that makes bringing back Alonso a greater reality, harder to grasp, rather, of a reality. And that is something that I appreciate the bluntness by Steve. And I also appreciate the fact that this is an active negotiation tactic between both sides, between Scott Boras and Alonso's camp, which is why Boras came out with comments later on that same day on Amazing Day this past Saturday, which is almost a week away now, right? A week ago, I should say. Crazy how much time flies. But seriously, highly important for you guys to check out this interview with David Stearns, and also check out the Amazing Day conversations over this past week. I was there in attendance, but if you guys haven't already, again, really, really good stuff there, folks. But that's the latest on the Alonso front and the David Stearns front. There's actually one final thing on Stearns I want to share, and I apologize because this was an important one that I didn't want to miss on, and it had to do with the future. You know, we saw Carlos Mendoza. I was there in the media room right next to Mendy as he was asked about Luis Angel Acuna, and he spoke glowingly of Acuna's impact here for 2025. But now to hear from David Stearns himself in this interview how much he views guys like Brandon Sproat as having high upside in 2025, that too is exciting. When speaking on the kids, this is what Stearns has to say, and I quote, "We are getting to a pretty exciting stage in our organization where we have a number of players who have been highly touted prospects through their time in the minor leagues who are now getting that in AA, AAA level and can impact our team at the major league level in the not-so-distant future." Let's see. Stearns said, someone like Brandon Sproat specifically, a young pitcher who will begin the year in AAA, one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball, who I will believe will help us at some point this year. I love the fact that he mentioned Brandon Sproat especially. Sproat's name has come up as a potential name that could be considered in trade talks for Dylan Cease or Michael Cain. Obviously, I hope that doesn't happen. Sproat is our top pitching prospect. He's a flamethrower, and he high-rised all the way from single A all the way up to AAA this past year in his second year in the professional minor league. So Sproat is going to likely start the year in AAA, as Stearns alluded to, but definitely a guy that can impact this Mets team at some point in the rotation, maybe even, again, a month or two in the season if he really showcases how dominant he is and his willingness to impact this team right away. And we all know Sproat is willing. He was even mentioned last year leading up until his end of his year there with the AAA Syracuse, if he'd be willing to be a reliever if called upon for the Mets in their deep run for a playoff push. And he said, absolutely. You know, whatever helps me get to the bigs fastest is all I care about. And I respect that honesty and that bluntness from Sproat, as I do, and the excitement level that you see a guy like David Stearns exemplify when discussing the young players in-house, should they not be traded as of now. But guys, that is what I'll leave you with. Thank you all so much for watching. Be on the lookout for a segment with myself and Brandon London and the New York Post Sports YouTube channel over the next couple hours. And again, 4 p.m. Eastern, sharp Bleach Report app. Be there or be square, baby. Let's go Mets. Peace out. Have a great one, everybody.